Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's great to have you back with us here in the cloud. And today we have an interview with a doctor of internal medicine. Pay attention to a couple of the points because he mentions persistence. He mentions passion. He talks about some challenges. It was a long interview, so I tried to bring it together. A couple of points that I thought you would enjoy. You listen to it. Try to take some things from it, especially at the end. He gives a suggestion that I think that all of us could benefit from. I wholeheartedly agree with him. You enjoy the interview, and we'll talk at the end. Today we have our special guest with us, Dr. Abdul Jamaluddin. Now, I know Dr. Jamaluddin. I've been working with him for many years, and so I'll be calling him what I call him on a regular basis, and that is Dr. J. So, Dr. J, first of all, we thank you for being with us today.
A lot more facilities, equipment, chemistry labs, and this type of thing than the poorly funded black school that I attended. So one of the challenges for my parents was for me to get a good education. In 1954, when the Supreme Court decision was made that school segregation was illegal, my parents were looking forward to this ruling, and they were, the minute this was made law, then my parents made an effort to take me out of the segregated school system and poorly funded school system that I was attending, and to find schools that higher caliber schools for me and my sister. Okay. So the challenge was for me to get a good education.
Now, once you got into the schools that allowed you to have a bit more of a higher education, you got into college and you were faced with medical school, what type of challenges faced you then once you got to that level?
Well, the challenge for me was graduating from college and graduating from medical school. That was the challenge. And of course, because of the culture that this slave had created in my family, that was a big push and incentive to do well. So the challenge was to do well in school. That was a challenge. We had a culture in our family of, as I mentioned before, of education. So I knew, no one told me that I had to do well. It was just expected because of what I was around educated people my whole life. So highly educated people. So we knew what was expected. So that was a challenge, to graduate and do well and not to fail.
Yeah, to have the expectation. All right. So how long have you been practicing medicine now?
You asked me this earlier, and I can't believe it, but I went back, and from the time I started practice in 1975 to the day, 41 years, and it's hard to believe that that's a lifetime for a lot of people that have been practicing this. So it's not, as I said, medicine is a continuing learning process. So these challenges, or the personality that you have to overcome the challenges in getting into medical school, graduating from medical school, and in your training, whatever specialty you go into, this personality traits is really not that much different than what you've already been through. The situations might be a little bit different, but being persistent and persistence is really the key. And as I said, these personality traits really start with the person. When you start wanting to go to medical school, you have put yourself open to a lot of challenges. and these challenges don't end. Don't stop at medical school and your training. So I think just the personality that it takes to get to that level continues on when you meet these challenges and when you're practicing physician. Yes. As a physician, to grow as a physician, I think you just have to, it's really a continuing learning experience. And what one has to do is to be dedicated to being in a learning environment. And especially from the time when I started medical school in 1968 up until the present time, there have been a lot of technological advances and treatments that one has to keep abreast of, and that to continue that and to keep up to date is kind of a challenge, and it requires you to have the attitude that you're going to keep up to date, and that's by reading, going to conferences, and that type of educational process.
Okay. So what advice would you give for somebody who was considering going into the medical field now?
The first thing I think that's important is that you like what you do, that is something that interests you. Because if you really enjoy what you're doing, then it's not work. So first thing I think is if you have a passion, you have to have a passion for this type of work. And I would recommend this to everyone. I think the biggest thing that I really would have done differently is I would have learned a foreign language. Actually, in high school, I was pretty good in French, and when I went to college, we had to take a foreign language. And I think that if you learn a foreign language, it just gives you a lot more options in life. I don't care what field you go into. I think if I had to do this all over, I would have. Because in medical school, you don't have to major in a science, and I didn't major in a science in medical school. I just took the sciences that were necessary to apply to medical school. And if I had to do it all over, I would have majored in school in a foreign language. I would have learned a foreign language. Because I think that would have given me a lot more options.
All right. Well, Dr. J, we thank you for coming and joining us. So what do you guys think? Did you all enjoy that interview? 40 years of internal medicine? Man, this guy has some gems that he could really give. The interview was much longer than that. I couldn't put it all on here, but it was a tremendous amount of wisdom that he put out there. Look, he talked about passion, having a passion for what you do. He talked about being persistent, and he talked about facing the challenges. And that point at the end about speaking another language, how much it will be able to help you in your career, or especially if you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to be in business, having the ability to speak another language, I think would help you out immensely. That is some advice that I'm definitely going to take. Look, we are having so much fun spending time with you here in the clouds. I look forward to our next interview. Can't wait to see you soon.